I remember the smell of roses before anything else. They were everywhere, bundled in soft pinks and creamy whites, twined around the arch where my sister was supposed to say her vows. I arranged each one by hand. My palms were raw, my fingers sticky with sap, but I didn't mind. It was her day. Or at least, it was supposed to be. My sister, Claire, had always been the golden one. The firstborn, the achiever, the one who smiled even when she didn't mean it. I loved her, but I lived in her shadow for most of my life. When she got engaged, I told myself I'd rise above all that. I'd be the supportive sister, the steady one who cheered from the sidelines. I was the maid of honor, until I wasn't. It started small. Texts that went unanswered, meetings I wasn't invited to. Then one night, I got a message from my mom. "Sweetheart, maybe take a step back. Claire's a little overwhelmed." Overwhelmed. That word did a lot of heavy lifting in our family. It covered resentment, jealousy, even cruelty, all dressed up in politeness. Still, I showed up. I showed up for the fittings, for the tastings, for the chaos. I paid for the flowers, half of them, anyway, because Claire said the budget was tight. I told myself it didn't matter that she hadn't even said thank you. This was family. This was love. Then, 1 week before the wedding, I found out. Not from her, but from my best friend, Marissa, who worked at the venue. She called me late, her voice tight. You might want to sit down." "What happened?" "They changed the guest list." "Okay," I laughed nervously. "That's normal, right? People cancel all the time." "No, Riley, you're not on it anymore." For a second, I thought she was joking. Then she sent me a picture of the finalized spreadsheet. My name, Riley Bennett, wasn't there. Not as maid of honor, not even as a guest. I sat in my car, the one place I could think straight. The rain was hitting the windshield in soft, steady taps. I called my mom. No answer. Then Claire. Straight to voicemail. I texted her, "Is this a mistake?" No reply. I barely slept that night. My mind spun in loops, replaying every moment, every sacrifice. I had taken time off work, driven across states, spent my savings to make this wedding beautiful, and now I wasn't even allowed to attend? The next morning, I drove to Claire's house. Her white SUV was parked out front, the same one she got after college when Dad co-signed the loan. I rang the doorbell, and she opened the door, looking perfect as always, hair in loose curls, nails painted that soft bridal pink. "Oh," she said, blinking like she didn't expect me. "Riley." I forced a smile. "Can we talk?" She sighed, glancing over her shoulder. "Now's not a good time." "Claire, I found out I was removed from the guest list." She winced. "You weren't supposed to find out like that." "So it's true?" She crossed her arms, that same posture she had when we were kids and she'd get caught lying. "It's just, things got complicated. The seating chart, the costs, the dynamics." "Mom thought?" "Mom thought?" My voice cracked. "So this was a family decision?" She expression softened. "Don't make this harder than it already is." I laughed. It was sharp, unplanned. "You disinvited your sister from your wedding. How exactly am I supposed to make that easier?" She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "You've been difficult, Riley. You question everything, and lately, I just need peace." That hit harder than I expected. "So what? I'm a disruption now?" She didn't say that. "You didn't have to." For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then she said something I'll never forget. "Maybe you can just watch the live stream." Like I was some distant cousin. Like I hadn't been there since day one. I left before the tears came. I didn't want her to see me break. That night, I sat on the edge of my bed, scrolling through the photos I'd taken of the venue. The place was beautiful. Old brick walls, soft lighting, a little chapel surrounded by oak trees. I had found it for her, negotiated the price, even placed the deposit under my name. And that's when the thought hit me. The venue was still under my name. She had never transferred the booking. I still held the contract, the deposit, everything. It wasn't about revenge, not at first. It was about fairness, about not being erased. I picked up the phone and called the venue coordinator. Hi, this is Riley Bennett. I'm calling about the reservation for the Whitestone Chapel this Saturday. Yes, she said cheerfully. We have it confirmed for the Bennett wedding. I need to cancel, I said quietly. There was a pause. I'm sorry? I won't be moving forward with that event. Her tone shifted. Miss Bennett, you understand there's a non-refundable portion. I understand. Go ahead and cancel. When I hung up, I felt something heavy lift off my chest. Not joy, not satisfaction, just stillness. I had erased the place where I was erased. The next morning, all hell broke loose. Claire called first, then Mom, then Dad. My phone buzzed nonstop. I didn't answer. Finally, a text came in from Claire. You ruined everything. I typed back, you removed me first. I didn't send it. I just stared at it until the letters blurred. Later that evening, there was a knock at my door. I opened it to find my mother standing there, wrapped in her beige coat, eyes tired. Riley, she said softly, what did you do? I swallowed. What you all did to me. She sighed. You didn't have to go that far. You didn't have to pick sides. She plimpered. You think I wanted this? I was trying to keep peace. By excluding me? She didn't answer. She just looked at me with something between guilt and heartbreak. Your sister's devastated. Good, I muttered before I could stop myself. Mom flinched. That's not who you are. I looked away. Maybe you don't know who I am. She left quietly, like someone leaving a hospital room. That night I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, the silence pressing down like weight. I didn't feel victorious anymore, just hollow. The kind of emptiness that whispers, you've gone too far. And deep down, I wondered if I'd just destroyed more than a wedding. I hesitated, but something inside me, the same thing that pushed me to fix what I'd broken, told me to go. The reception was held in a rustic barn lit by strands of twinkling lights. When I arrived, people turned, whispering. Some looked confused, others smiled. Mom rushed over first, tears already streaking her face. Riley, she said, clutching my hands. Oh, honey, I'm so glad you're here. I searched her eyes. You knew she took me off the list. She nodded slowly. I did. I thought it would keep things from blowing up. I was wrong. Her voice cracked, and for the first time in a long while, I saw her not as the peacemaker who'd failed me, but as a mother caught in the middle of two daughters she didn't know how to hold at once. I squeezed her hand. We all made mistakes. She smiled through her tears. Some of us made a few more than others. The night unfolded like something out of a dream. There was laughter, dancing, even a moment when Claire grabbed the microphone to thank everyone. Then, unexpectedly, she said, There's one person I want to thank especially, my sister, Riley. A hush fell over the crowd. She wasn't supposed to be here tonight, because I didn't let her. But she's the reason this wedding even happened. She gave me the gift of grace when I didn't deserve it. People turned toward me. I felt my face flush, my throat tighten. Claire smiled through tears. I used to think strength meant being right, but my sister showed me it means being willing to forgive. The applause that followed felt like a wave, warm, humbling, overwhelming. Later that night, as the music played and couples swayed beneath the lights, I stepped outside for air. The stars were bright, the cold biting just enough to feel real. Marissa found me there, leaning against the railing with 2 cups of hot cider. She handed me one. You did good, she said. I laughed softly. Not sure that's the word I'd use. She nudged me. You know, when you canceled that venue, I thought you'd lost it, but maybe you just needed to break something open to see what was worth saving. I looked at her, then back at the stars. Maybe.
For a moment, we just stood there in silence, listening to the muffled laughter inside. Then, from the doorway, Claire called out, "Riley, come dance with me." I hesitated, then smiled and set my cup down. As I walked toward her, I realized something. Forgiveness doesn't erase what's been done, it redeems it. It turns the broken thing into a bridge. When I reached the dance floor, Claire grabbed my hands, spinning me clumsily in her gown. We laughed like we hadn't in years, like two little girls building blanket forts again. Only this time, we didn't let them fall. By the time the night ended, I knew things wouldn't ever be perfect between us, but maybe perfect was never the goal. Maybe it was just learning to love through the cracks. As I drove home, the radio hummed a quiet worship song I hadn't heard in years. The lyrics whispered something about mercy being new every morning. And for the first time in a long while, I believed it.
I thought I'd feel peace after that morning, but grace doesn't always come with calm. It often comes with ache. After the ceremony, I sat in my car a long time, engine off, the sound of distant laughter echoing through the trees. Every once in a while, I caught a glimpse of guests taking photos outside the chapel. It felt strange, like watching a movie I used to be part of but no longer belonged in. I should have driven away, but something in me couldn't let go until I saw Claire again. About an hour later, I did. She came out of the chapel with her new husband, Daniel, her arm looped through his. Her face was radiant, not from perfection, but from relief. For a moment, I almost convinced myself it had all been worth it. Then her gaze swept across the parking lot and landed on me. We froze. I could have looked away, pretended I wasn't there, but she started walking toward me, dress gathered in her hands, eyes wide. When she reached the car, she just stood there, breathing hard. "You came," she said. I nodded, unsure what else to do. Her voice trembled. Did you fix this?" I looked down. "Does it matter?" Tears filled her eyes. "It matters to me." I hesitated before saying, "Yeah, I called the venue. I sent the payment again." Her hand went to her mouth. "Why would you do that?" "Because you deserved your wedding, even if I didn't deserve to be in it." For a long time, she didn't speak. Then she said something I wasn't ready for. "You did deserve to be here, Riley. I just didn't know how to handle us." I frowned. "Us?" She nodded, her eyes glassy. "You've always been strong. People love you for it." I didn't realize how much I resented that until I started planning this wedding. Everyone kept comparing your taste, your eye for details, your independence. I thought if I created distance, maybe I could have something that was just mine. Her words sank deep. "So you punished me for being myself?" She winced. "I didn't mean for it to be that way. I just wanted to breathe without feeling like I was living in your reflection." That stung. For years, I believed I was the one in her shadow. Now I realized maybe we'd both been standing in the dark, each thinking the other blocked the light. I took a slow breath. "You hurt me, Claire. You made me feel disposable." "I know," her voice broke, "and I'll never forgive myself for it. But when I found out the venue was gone, I thought I'd lost everything. Not the wedding, you. Because even then, I knew only you could have done it." I swallowed hard, trying not to cry. "You weren't wrong." "And then," she said, brushing a tear away, "I found out the venue was back on. Daniel told me the staff said it was reinstated under your name. That's when I realized you'd still shown up for me, even after you'd erased me." I looked away, my eyes burning. "I didn't do it for thanks." "I know," she whispered. "You did it because that's who you are." We stood there, silent, while the photographer called her name from a distance. "You should go," I said softly. "They're waiting." She nodded, then took a step forward and hugged me. It was awkward at first, layers of tulle pressing between us, the scent of her perfume mingling with the cool air, but then I felt her tremble against me. "I love you," she whispered, "even when I'm terrible at showing it." I closed my eyes. "I love you too." When she pulled away, she smiled through tears. "Come to the reception." I wasn't invited, remember? Her expression shifted, a mix of guilt and determination. "You are now. Please." The morning after I canceled the venue, I woke to the sound of my phone buzzing on the nightstand. I didn't have to look to know it was Claire. She'd called 11 times since last night. I buried the phone under my pillow, willing the noise to stop. But guilt has a sound. It doesn't fade. It lingers, soft and relentless, like a heartbeat that doesn't belong to you anymore. When I finally checked my messages, there was one from Claire I hadn't seen before. "Please, Riley, I don't know what to do. Everything's falling apart." For a second, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Then I remembered standing in her doorway being told to watch the live stream. I remembered how small she made me feel, how quickly Mom had taken her side. Still, I couldn't ignore the image of her, bride-to-be, panicking, probably crying into her perfect makeup. I turned off my phone again and went to make coffee. As the machine hissed and steamed, I stared out the kitchen window at the gray November sky. I used to love this time of year, the smell of wood smoke, the way the cold felt honest on my skin. But that morning, everything looked muted, like the color had been drained out of the world. Marissa showed up around noon, hair in a messy bun, her coat half-zipped. "So," she said, stepping inside without waiting for an invite, "you actually did it?" I sighed. "You saw the schedule change. What did you expect?" "I expected drama," she said, setting a paper bag on the counter, "not nuclear warfare." I shot her a look. "Don't start." She raised her hands. "I'm not judging, just, wow, you canceled your sister's wedding." I leaned against the counter, rubbing my temple. "I didn't cancel her marriage, just the venue. She can find another one." Marissa's voice softened. "You know there's no time. It's in 3 days." I didn't answer. She took out 2 breakfast sandwiches from the bag and handed me one. "Eat something. You look like you've been hit by a truck." I forced a bite, though my stomach turned. "You think I went too far?" She hesitated. "I think you finally stood up for yourself. Maybe just harder than necessary." Her words stung because they were true. That night, I dreamed of Claire. We were kids again, building forts out of blankets in the living room, whispering about who we'd marry someday. In the dream, she looked at me and said, "You ruined it." Then everything collapsed, blankets, chairs, walls, and I woke up with my heart pounding. The next day, Dad called. I almost didn't answer, but something in me knew I needed to. "Riley," he said, voice low, heavy, "we need to talk." "About what?" I asked, though I knew. "Your mother's in tears. Your sister hasn't slept. What you did, it's not like you." I swallowed hard. "Maybe you never really knew me." He was silent for a moment. "You're angry. I get that, but this isn't the way." I clenched the phone. "You all made your choice. You let her erase me." "We didn't erase you," he said gently. "You walked away. I was pushed." His sigh crackled through the phone. "You think hurting her will make you feel better." I blinked away tears. "No, but it made me feel like I mattered for a second." He didn't have an answer for that. After we hung up, I sat on the floor, my back against the wall. All around me were boxes from when I moved into this apartment last year, half unpacked, half forgotten. It hit me then. I'd built my life around other people's celebrations, their milestones, their happiness. I'd never really fought for my own peace. By evening, I got another call, this time from an unknown number.
I almost ignored it until I heard the voice on the other end. "Hi, this is Pastor Grant. Is this Riley Bennett?" I froze. He was the pastor from Claire's church, the one who was supposed to officiate. "Yes, this is her." "I heard about the situation with the wedding," he said carefully. "Claire's very upset, and I thought maybe I could reach out." I laughed bitterly. "She send you to fix me?" "No," he said. "I just thought you might need someone to listen." His kindness disarmed me. There's not much to say. Sometimes the things we do in pain feel right for a moment, but echo for years. I didn't respond. I just stared at the wall, my throat tight. He continued, "Grace isn't about letting people walk on you, Riley, but it's also not about burning everything down." Something inside me cracked then. I thanked him and hung up quickly before the tears could fall. The next morning, I drove to the old church where Mom used to take us on Sundays. I hadn't been there in years. I sat in the parking lot, hands gripping the steering wheel, watching the light filter through the stained glass windows. I didn't pray, exactly. I just whispered, "I don't know what to do." And in the quiet, I thought I heard something. Not words, but a feeling. "You know what's right." That afternoon, I texted Marissa, "Can you get me the contact for the venue manager?" She replied instantly, "Are you fixing this?" I stared at her message for a while, then typed, "Trying." When I finally reached the venue, the manager's voice was polite but cold. "Miss Bennett, the cancellation has already been processed. The date has been released." My heart sank. "No one's taken it yet, right?" "Not yet," she said, "but I can't reinstate the booking unless we get the payment again." I closed my eyes. That deposit had been my savings. "I'll find a way." After hanging up, I opened my banking app. The number glared at me. Too small to fix this. But maybe I could call Dad. No, that would be humiliating. Instead, I drove to the boutique where I worked part-time. My boss, a kind woman named Jo, took one look at me and frowned. "Honey, you look wrecked. Can I pick up extra shifts or an advance?" She raised an eyebrow. "This about that sister of yours?" I hesitated. "It's about making something right." She studied me for a moment, then nodded. "I'll see what I can do." That night, I transferred every spare dollar I had. It wasn't enough, but it was something. The next morning, the manager called back. "We received your payment. The venue's reinstated for Saturday." Relief washed over me, but it didn't feel like victory. It felt like surrender. I didn't tell Claire. I didn't need to. I just hoped she'd find out in time. 3 days later, on the morning of the wedding, I drove to the chapel early. The oaks were dripping with dew, the air cold and still. The staff were setting up flowers, my flowers. When I saw the Bennett Wright wedding sign standing at the entrance again, something inside me loosened. I didn't go inside. I just sat in my car across the road, watching as the guests began to arrive, all dressed in soft pastels and laughter. When Claire's white car pulled up, she stepped out in her gown, radiant and trembling. She looked around, confused, as if trying to understand how the venue still stood. She never saw me there, but when the church bells rang, I finally smiled. For the first time in a long while, I felt free, not because I'd won, but because I'd chosen grace.